Recently, I created a GitHub repo for the Kafka components I've been working with in the Liquid Sky Agile Management platform. Although overall closed source, as I develop the platform, the individual components that I find helpful, such as the pieces I use to interact with Kafka here, I want to share to the wider community. I streamed configuring the samples of the producers and consumers and have made this video to accompany the sample content. Recently, 24 hours ago, created a library of some of the pieces I use for using Kafka in my application stuff. I want to build on that by creating some sample programs in the actual source code. So let's create a solution folder, samples, right? And let's add a new project, and these are going to go into Kafka Extensions / samples. So this is going to be a producer. Producer sample, we'll call this one. And let's remove that. So what I need to demonstrate is obviously I'm going to have to create some events, etc., and publish those events out. And then we'll create a consumer and consume the events and prove that those pieces are working, and then we know that everything's coming together. I was able to put this code in place. It does build. I have not run it yet, so we'll see how that goes. So let's create an events project while we're doing it, right? So events, and that's just a class, a class library, just to provide. So if we do sample event, right? This would be public string, some value. Been a long day typing. Public int some of the value. There we go. Copilot to the rescue. So we're just going to produce that event, and then we're going to consume the event and prove that we publish it and receive it. So I kind of started this off on the wrong path. I created a class library, whereas I actually wanted to make a console application, right? So let's do that. Let's create a program.cs. And nope, we're not going to create an actual program or namespace. Let's add yeah, because I need the dependency injection pieces at the very least here. So I think, do we have .post? So we need at least Microsoft.extensions.hosting, I believe. So that will include that, and then there'll be create default builder. So we're going to configure services, right? So var host equals that. Actually, let's do at, and then we'll do .build at the end, right? That will give us our actual host. Host await host.run async. So in here, this is going to be our service collection, and we're going to actually use our Kafka extensions. And again, we're the producer here, right? We're not the consumer, so we don't need to worry about that part right this second. And let's see how my documentation lines up. So publishing, if you want to configure your application to publish events, then you need to add the services configuration for dependency injection. So we should be able to do services.add Kafka in here, right? Services.add Kafka, then builder dot, right? So we've got the add default publisher. Add default publisher just registers the fact that there's going to be a Kafka publisher, so using I-event publisher. So we add our default publisher, and there we go. That should be the coding part of that part. We have a bit more to do, but yes. So let's add a configuration file. App settings.json. Add that. Content. Copy always right now. I don't care if it's there. And again, if we jump back to the README, I introduced the configuration for this further up the actual page because the this applies to both producer and consumer to some extent, right? So again, I am relying on the fact that I do have Docker running. I do have an actual, so I use CP All-in-One, which is the Confluent community. So I should just be able to take these pieces. So again, I have this already set up on the machine, so that's why I can trust that this is going to work, or should work. And I can add that curly brace. No, it's not under logging. That should not be under logging. That should be under this one. There. Right. So we're going to add the producer. And we also do need the topics. Right? Or we need a topic. Because we need to... What happens is the code is made to take the type name and construct the... get the topic name off of the type of the object, so it will know which topic to publish to based upon our configuration in here. Both producer and consumer are set to use that, which is why topics lives at that level. So we need to go in here and add topics, and again it's at that level. Close that brace off. That's what I need to do. So in this case, events dot sample event. This is the events namespace, so that it's going to work fine. So I'll be able to reference events there, and this will work fine. And we have sample event, so this is going to be, sample product dot sample event, right? This is my naming convention. This does not necessarily mean that you have to follow this convention. It just means that that's how I want to lay out my topics. From a visual perspective, I can see, hey, this is the product and this is the event. So if I do put multiple pieces or multiple applications into my single Kafka server, I'll be able to see the product that they're for and then the event topic. So with that done, we need to publish something, right? So runs an application, returns a task that only completes when the token is triggered or shutdown is triggered, right? So how do we just run something in here? Do we have to do that? Can we do var publisher equals that, right? And then that'll work almost. That's interesting that it wants to provide that. So here what we do is we say new sample event, and I'll show you. There we go. Oh, GitHub Copilot has a sense of humor, the number 42 on here. So we can import that, and that'll work kind of. Now, what I've done is, as part of this, and right now I do want to kind of work on some abstractions. I think there's an abstractions library probable off of this, so we can refer to that afterwards. But iEvent includes an event ID and an occurred on, so that by default the expected behavior is that every event would have a unique identifier attached to it that is application generated. I don't believe Kafka does that. I mean, you would have the message ID, I suppose, but this would be an event identifier. You could use it for verifying that you're not receiving the same event again, so you could use it for some level of idempotency. You could track that the event came in here, and this is the event identifier. There's uses. An occurred on is again set when you create it. So there is a default implementation of that in default event, right? It's automatically set. So what I'll do is I'll extend default event, right? Now this has a reference to that, and this has a reference to that. This does not have any references back, so it should be okay. The abstractions library is starting to look pretty good right now. I don't like that this has a reference to the thing that this has a dependency on as well, but that has a dependency on that. So maybe I create an abstractions library for those interfaces. So with that in place, I should be able to run this. Now again, I haven't run this previously, so this could be the first time and it might fail. So let's try hitting F5. So it should just start and stop almost immediately, right? Right. Now let's go to, what's the best tool for this? Let's try KDeck. It has a dark mode, which I'd appreciate right this second. So we can give that a try. So KDeck is a Kafka connection tool. It can be licensed for, well, it's free for one instance. There's my sample product. There's my event. So not bad for the first run. It does work, right? So our event published, we have some value and sample in that. So let's go ahead and create commit for that. So we have events, produce a sample. Yeah. Create sample program to produce event. Pretty much it. Right. So it's not difficult. This is why I've created this library. It does help me. You can inject that event publisher now, but I think we probably need to make this tbddevelop.kafka.abstractions so that those pieces aren't hardwired into this, because pulling all this as dependency doesn't make sense when this only needs the abstractions. And that seems to be the pattern in the framework. I was trying to think about that as I was doing this in what is the pattern here where we have this event dependency, because the event publisher, right, I'm calling it an event publisher, but it's very much Kafka, right? So you could potentially swap out the interface, but I'm making the interface, the reality is I'm making the interface easier and lightweight, so you could swap it out with anything. And what will happen is I will create an implementation that is an outbox that is still an event publisher. So I'll be able to swap that in, and my applications will have no understanding of whether they're really publishing an event or they're actually going to an outbox, which is then going on to actually publish the event, right? Let's remember to make it a console app this time. Consumer sample in the samples folder. There we go. So immediately I know this is going to have a reference there and a reference there and a reference here in this case, right? So the Kafka services is basically just adding a default worker service implementation, which just registers this worker service, and this is just a very simple background service that you can use. It will inject the consumer, and then it will begin consuming. That's all this is doing. It's not doing anything advanced. It's useful in the case of, I just want to add. I just want to start consuming. The consumer's built on distributing these messages, right? So it is a distributing in that you register handlers for each event, and it will dispatch those. So I'm going to go here again, produce a sample, and I'm going to use a similar pattern, right? I'm going to use this hosting. Again, I just need the bare minimum of a .NET application to start, so I can actually do the pieces I need. So it's going to look very similar, right? I'm going to import that. And instead of this time, instead of doing, again, going to the documentation that I created yesterday, for publishing, we've done that, right? And you can inject the iEvent publisher. In that example, all I did was use the iEvent publisher, right? But you can inject it, you can put it into wherever you want to put it. And again, it's an abstraction that means that later on I can swap out iEvent publisher for an outbox, and all the interfaces remain solid. All the uses remain solid, rather, not the interfaces. So the dispatching consumer, the consumer is a little bit different, right? A little bit. Okay, so let's add this consumer. So the dispatching consumer, and it's called the dispatching consumer because it takes the events and then dispatches them to the correct handler. I'm just going to create a handlers folder just to keep this nice and neat. And what this does is, if I create a, let's say the sample event handler class, I event handler, a sample event, no, what do I call it? Event, got the readme, refer to the readme. Oh, I didn't document that part. Did I not? Did I not make it a component of this? I thought I had done. Consumption, configuration, event publisher, event receiver, publishing, serializers, service collections, event consumer. No, I don't think I made it a part of this. Let's see what happens. So the way this is meant to work is you're meant to say, okay, sample event handler, right? And what this is meant to say is, hey, when you see this event, go to this event receiver. There we go. That's what it is. iEvent receiver. This is the dispatching part of the dispatching consumer, right? So just by wiring it up, it should be enough to actually register this. And then this should do console.writeline. And this should do event dot some value, event dot sample event, no, event dot some of the value. Return task.completed task. So that's an event receiver. The idea being that this wires up. Just need to make sure that, yeah. So your handlers should be added to DI, so you do need to register these. Now, question, do I jump through the hoop of actually going and dealing with this myself? So in the event receiver, add event receiver literally just says, okay, try and get the topic from the type of the event, so the topic still has to be in the configuration file. And it uses get required service. So it actually creates an instance at that point of that topic consumer. So there's only one created. So the transient nature there is kind of wasted. I have the provider. I do not have the service collection. So at this point, I'm already too late to be registering the dependency. So yeah, it just feels like an extra step it should be unnecessary. But I'm outside of service collection, so you need to remember to register. And this wouldn't actually matter then. This could be a singleton as much as anything else, right? Because it's not going to create an instance of, it's not going to create more than one instance, because what this is going to do is actually start a long running thread. So I have the Kafka configuration. I don't have it here, right? So let's add that over here. Add this one, app settings.json, add. We always just do that. So we do need this. Let's just copy all that and then we can trim it out. So in this case, we're using consumer. And again, I can go back to the README. And I can see that this is useful for the consumer, right? So I'm going to need the Bootstrap service. Now what I've done here is I've actually made it take, these are the standard Kafka configuration values. So this just takes them straight up as a dictionary and passes them straight into the Confluent producer and consumer. So these are just as they are in the documentation for Confluent. So that makes it more flexible. It means I'm not trying to write strange wrapper classes or adapters to the consumer. Bootstrap server is the same. The group ID is, my sample app or whatever, right? This video is not the focus of what that means, so that's for a later time. And the auto offset reset just says, hey, start at the beginning of the stream. So let's see if this runs. I should get some values. There you go. Hello world 42. So our consumer is started, the service is running, and it consumed the message and the event and put it in there. And that's basically getting Kafka hooked up into my application, right? So I had to look up, yeah. That's because I know that configuration is going to be essentially a singleton. I'm not reloading it dynamically in any way, so it's no, don't keep reloading it. And there we go. Okay, so we should have version 1 of the extensions went, and version 2 of the abstractions and services went. I'll push a version 3 later, it'll be fine. NuGet is all kinds of special at times. But anyway, we have got the basics of the NuGet packages being published as well. So the code is there. The README is generally good enough, I think. I think it gives you enough of an idea of how to use the library. The code is there, the sample applications